Alright, so here's where this project sits as of right now. It's all drilled and tapped. Again, 7/16 20 threads per inch. I ran out of memory card, so I polished this thing with a Scotch-Brite pad and hit it with some acetone, sort of clean it off a little bit. And that is where this comes in. I have no idea if this is going to be good for what I'm about to do for it, but we're going to do it anyways because it was cheap. So, and it's glossy. So, as I mentioned before, there are 3 different versions of this lightsaber that are in the movie. There is one where it's like the hero version. It's all clean. It's got like a control box on it. It's all fancy and stuff like that. It's polished. And that is clearly a different lightsaber than the one in 95% of the rest of the movie. And then there's another one where it was basically a prop left over from A New Hope, and it was Obi-Wan Kenobi's, one of Obi-Wan Kenobi's replica props, and they just made it into something. I'm not quite sure where that is in the movie. I have to watch it again, but for about 95% of the rest of the movie, there is the lightsaber that hangs on his belt, that he uses in all the battle scenes, every single time. It's also in a close-up in the Emperor's throne room where it's sitting on Palpatine's chair. That is the one that I am making right now, and that one is seriously weathered. It looks like it was cobbled together with parts, and it looks like it's been through some stuff. So that is why we have this black paint that I don't care if it doesn't give a good finish. That's not supposed to. And I'm just going to ruin it anyways. So, I think what I'm going to do is make sure that I get all the lathe covered up so I don't get any black enamel paint on the lathe. So, and then I'm going to try various techniques of weathering with, say, a Scotch-Brite pad or steel wool or even sandpaper. And the paint will fill in the cracks and crevices of the hilt, and we're only going for the surfaces that are raised. So those deep cuts, those deep V cuts in the hilt, those will stay black, and the surfaces that are flat and on top, they will get all polished up, except for a couple parts. And really, the paint job doesn't have to look perfect. It just has to look reasonable for me. I mean, it's the first lightsaber I've ever done, so, and it's supposed to have a weathered look anyways. So I think this is ready to paint. We'll get this thing off the lathe. We'll drill and tap the other side so that it can accept a thread as well. So that's what we got going on right now. I'm hoping this works. So if not, I can always just take off the outermost portion and start over again. So really, there is no wrong way to do this, I don't think. I could be wrong about that, but I'm going to assume I'm not. I can't tell you how good this feels to like hold this in my hand. It's been in the lathe for so long. Like, I like the weight of it. It's a heavy piece, but the weight feels good, and like it came out exactly how I wanted it to. So the paint is still a little tacky, but like it's exactly how I want it. It just feels so good. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Everyone with a lathe needs to do this. They need to do this. It's so fun. It's so fun to like hold it in your hand. But I have one more thing that I have to do before I complete part A, and that is put this end in the chuck in the lathe, and then drill out a hole, and then thread this end, because this is where the pommel is going to thread on. And that is part C. So part B is going to be next. And it's going to be relatively easy. It's just going to be like this one. I have another piece of aluminum that I'm just going to chuck up in the lathe and get the exact dimensions, and just go ahead and remove material until I have what I need, and then of course thread it on the bottom, and then just cut it off. So obviously parts A and parts B are going to be pretty simple. This is the simplest part. It's just, I mean, it's a big hunk of metal. It's the main body of Luke's lightsaber, so it already looks and feels really, really satisfying in my hand. But I think with the emitter portion, it's going to look vastly better. It's going to become, it already became real when the Graflex clamp fit on this thing, but it's going to become that much more real when it's got an emitter coming out of the top of this. And then of course completing it with the pommel, which is going to be a little bit tricky. I can do most of that with the lathe, but we're going to have to move over to the shaper to complete that portion, to get the, I don't know what you call it, the gear type look. I think the original piece of those lightsabers, like the actual prop that they made those things out of, it's actually like a British shower handle, like the hot cold, knob on a shower. It's just, they like cobbled these things together and made them look so cool with just random parts, which I think is really, really cool about the Star Wars props, is they were extremely practical. They just took random parts that they had that looked cool and pieced them together, and they made the coolest weapons in maybe all of sci-fi. I will end with footage of me boring out the hole, drilling it, tapping it, and then that'll be in the end of this video. I've taken a break from the Halo knife just because we were doing some work on the vertical mill. We were installing power feed, and that turned out to be a more difficult job than we originally thought. We just bought the power feed off of the Grizzly catalog, but it is installed right now and ready to go, and I'm eager to test it out on a couple things. But I think I'm going to keep the momentum going on this thing and finish the Halo Reach Combat Bowie knife later on. We're going to keep moving on this thing, and we're going to keep going until it's done, because I really, really want this thing to be done, and I really want to hold it in my hands.